so that we have it for posterity. And I will turn off the videos of our guests so that we have our crew. Wonderful. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Carla Corcoran. I am one of the two program managers here at the MFA Graduate Studies Office at the University of Hartford Art School. And I'm the main program manager for the interdisciplinary MFA program. And I'm so excited to have two of my favorite people, Mary Mattingly and Christy Gast, here. Mary is taking over as our interim program director this year, while our founder, Carol Padberg, is on sabbatical. Having a great time, by the way. You should follow her on Instagram if you don't already do that, because her adventures with sheep and weaving and everything she's learning over her sabbatical is really fantastic. And so Mary is stepping into that role for this year, and she's doing a fabulous job, and she's going to give us a little intro about the program. And then we'll dive right into the meat and bones of our webinar today, which is Christy Gast, talking about the research collective Ensayos and the collaborative project that our students took part in this past summer 2021 during their summer residency, and the amazing Bog project, which I'm actually really excited to hear you talk about, because I saw it like in process, but I kind of missed all of the recap and debriefing on that specific project because it happened after the residency was over. So I'm excited to even just watch this. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A, and we can talk about the project, the class, or the program in general. As most people know, we do have a application deadline coming up January 15th for our next class, which we will welcome June 2022, and it'll be our 7th cohort. I can't believe we're at cohort number 7. And so undoubtedly people usually have questions, and we can certainly address those as well. And of course, feel free to always use the chat feature if there's anything that pops up along the way. If you are having any technical difficulties, again, feel free to utilize the chat. We are recording this for posterity. We'll send out a link and we'll post it at the end. And I guess that's probably enough of me talking, and I'll turn it over to Mary.
Thanks. Thank you, Carla. My name is Mary Mattingly, and I'm, like Carla said, I'm standing in for Carol Padberg while she's on sabbatical. I'm also a thesis advisor for the second year and sometimes teach a course called River Lab. And so I'll talk a little bit about River Lab as well. But just for a brief run of show, I'll start with an overview of the curriculum with a focus on pedagogy, and then I'll hand it over to Christy, who will do the deeper dive into her Techno Lab and Art and Ecology courses that she's taught with Ensayos. So Christy will walk us through what it's like to be a student in that course, what you would experience, how you would co-learn together with your cohort. And you'll also see how students support each other while being in a rigorous learning environment together. So after our presentations, like Carla said, we'll have some time for Q&A. So you can feel free to type questions into the chat whenever they come up, and we'll respond to them at the end. So also, like Carla mentioned, the Nomad MFA was founded by Carol Padberg here at the University of Hartford as a response to an art and education system that was too siloed by discipline for a holistic education, more apt for today. So Carol really wanted to build a more interdisciplinary program where artists work with scientists, holders of traditional ecological knowledge, organizers, craftspeople, and artisans, so people who bridge disciplines. So I wanted to talk about the Nomad ethos and the pedagogy, our class design, and how the programs work. So I think it's a good idea to begin with the fact that this MFA program is based on socio-ecological thinking. It's based on a technology spectrum that we like to say goes from craft to code. It's also based on permaculture principles and systems thinking. So our ethos is to provide a rigorous education that's also experimental, it's holistic, high impact, and also fosters collaboration and risk taking, all within a field-based curriculum. So this curriculum happens out in the world, and that's a very important part of how we do things. The Nomad MFA foregrounds regenerative culture, which highlights models of abundance rather than scarcity. And I think that's very important to talk about. And we want to be sure that we're not only attending to intellectual learning, but also to well-being. And this means that we can't forget about our bodies and our communities while we attend to our minds. So we understand that these things aren't separate in this program. And I think that's really unique and important. We actively work towards ways that we can make education more accessible and interdependent. Part of this has to do with how the program and the facilitators work ethically within a community as a visitor and as a guest, and how we learn from ecologies that are embedded in the materials and the tools that we use and that we rely upon, how we embed work around anti-racism and privilege, solidarity economics, interdisciplinary research methodologies, and integration of art and life from artists, practitioners into the curriculum, really from the beginning. So this is an image of working with Will DeLees Bermudez in Hartford, addressing the police use of drones in Hartford. That class was really about making change both inside and outside of structures of power. The field-based educational philosophy has its roots in reciprocity. So each of the communities we've been able to visit, we cultivate a long-term relationship with, and we aspire to give and to receive with, and to build wellness around us. So this affects how we learn. We focus on reading and writing while simultaneously participating in hands-on dialogic, working and making and thinking together. So this is a great example of building a cob oven together while sharing ideas around a land-based commons. I think being field-based allows us to really deconstruct the typical classroom setting. So you might find yourself building a cob oven, or you might find yourself in an ancestral space in New Mexico, or in a site like a museum where an artist is making a new work, or in an artist's home. So here, students on the right, they're working with writer and artist Linda Weintraub on her farm in the Hudson Valley. Or you might find yourself in a workers' co-op here. You're with artist Caroline Willard in New York City in the bottom left. You might be engaging and learning practical skills with them, from budgeting for large projects to speaking and writing powerfully about your work, to hands-on making your own tools, which is a good example of what students did with Linda in the Hudson Valley. Or back to the first image on the top right or top left, you might find yourself learning how to honorably harvest clay with Roxanne Swensel. So an example of part of a 2-week residency, and this would be a winter residency. This one took place in Oaxaca, where students worked with Demetrio Bautista Lazo to make vibrant color dyes from pecan shells, from leaves, flowers, lichens, and cochineal. And then they worked with contemporary artist Pedro Lash on a major art exhibition in Mexico City with a research-based assignment where Pedro credited the students as his collaborators in the end of the process. So a general overview of how the curriculum rolls out. It's in the summer and winter, we have intensives. In the summer is a 3-week intensive, and the winter is a 2-week intensive. It's a 26-month program with 3 summers and 2 school years in between. So while you're in the spring and the fall semester, you would meet with your thesis advisor once every 3 weeks through online meetings, and you're in constant touch with your other student cohort members. And students join Nomad from as far away as Saudi Arabia and Ghana and France, and all over the Americas in the United States, because the program we specifically travel for these discrete periods of time. Artists have the flexibility to stay in the place where they live. While travel is an important part of the MFA, it allows us to sort of visualize and co-learn different ways of being and practice together. This winter, for example, we'll visit artist Paula Wilson and Carrizozo, and we'll visit an artist residency and programming space that Paula started with her partner there as a way to see how artist practitioners really engage in the places that they live and also how we can co-learn with them. So we're honored to work with an extremely talented and generous and respected group of faculty based in the Americas. And then, like I mentioned, for continuity, your thesis advisors work with you through the first and the second year in the program. And I'll just run through the curriculum very quickly. So we have some courses that continue. Art in Place is one that repeats 3 times in different iterations. So it addresses ethics of community and place. We see what artists, leaders, and cultural members are doing, and we learn from that and sort of take it in and learn from their best practices in Art in Place. Technolab is a course where we focus on materiality in that tech spectrum that I mentioned from craft to code. So it could be that you're producing a podcast with Christy and Ensayos in the New Museum, or you're working on Arduino code-based programming and wearable technology, or you're learning how to weave a Dakota bag and doing that within the significance of being in Dakota territory and understanding a place through Dakota culture. In the Distinguished Practitioner course, students might work with artist Mark Dion on co-designing a naturalist shanty, which was our last Distinguished Practitioner course, or with contemporary artist Hope Ginsberg on a land-based scuba dive exercise. Each semester, each summer or winter semester, we're very privileged to be able to work with a distinguished practitioner. Creative Economies focuses on rethinking value, time, and shared resources through a solidarity economics perspective. And methodologies in contemporary art is an ongoing part of Nomad's strategy for learning art histories. In art history research methodologies, you reflect on your practice and frame your work within the context of working artists. And in writing art and agency, you focus on the techniques that we use. The techniques we use include peer learning, they include accountability and writing strategies, and that's sort of how we work together as a cohort on our writing practice. We want the students to challenge each other and for the writing process to be iterative. So River Lab is a course that I teach. We look at the idea of river restoration through a more bureaucratic lens, through reading about creative research methods by folks like Helen Kara and studying some formal river restoration plans set forth by scientists and ecologists and watershed communities and cities, and really interrogating the form or the purpose in order to reimagine restoration through the lens of art. So we start with a question like, what can the watershed that we live nearby and depend on teach us about interdependency? And what can we learn from systems like restoration ecology, both from its potential for ecosystem violence as well as its potential to repair? So that might be a question that we start with for a course like River Lab. And finally, we focus on your own work with your thesis advisors. And that's a course that runs throughout the spring and the fall semester, where you meet with your thesis advisors for, once every 3 weeks. And in summary, I think although the residency times are very compacted, we also assign pre-residency prep readings, and many of the course assignments carry on after the time that we're in residency together. So for example, you may be assigned a web development assignment or a bookmaking or research notebook assignment, and you might continue to meet with your professor after the intensive residency in conclusion of a course that starts in the summer or the winter residency. So now I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand it over to Christy Gast, who is going to talk about her courses with Ensayos.
Thank you, Mary, and hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name's Christy Gast, and I am the thesis advisor, and I run the group critiques for the first year students in the program. And I also teach a few different courses with one of my collaborators for Ensayos, Camila Marambio. And those courses are Art and Ecology and Technolab. I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about Ensayos, who we are, and how teaching fits into the work that we do. And then I will go into some more detail about what happens in those courses. So Ensayos is an interdisciplinary art, field work, and pedagogy collective. We say that we do collective research. Ensayos was was founded in Tierra del Fuego in the extreme south of Chile and Argentina in 2010. You can see there the cutout on the map where we're working. And we started out by partnering with Caruquinca Natural Reserve, which is a unit of the Wildlife Conservation Society that does a lot of really important work on conservation biology in the archipelago to address eco-political concerns. The first residency that we did in 2010 brought together 18 artists and scientists from Chile, Norway, the US, and Canada to Tierra del Fuego for 10 days to discuss the use and the value of bringing artists and social scientists into the research program of that specific park, Caruquinca Natural Park, which is a Wildlife Conservation Society unit. So we included artists that were working in the Arctic Circle, a natural resource economist, Chilean and US eco-activists, ecologists from the WCS, and park rangers from the US and Chile, local landowners, artists, and anthropologists to talk about our work and how interdisciplinary work in the guise of an art residency might look there. We toured sites across the island, and we shared knowledge, research, and ideas, and started to form ideas of what kind of residency would be appropriate in Tierra del Fuego. And so the outcomes of that first meeting were that we recognized the need to deal with the 3 urgent matters of concern that required long-term participant commitment to have at least 3 years. We established a focus in the very beginning on 2 areas of research, which were invasive species and coastal management, and later added more issues, including post-human geography, peatland conservation, and others. And we defined an open-ended, collaborative, multidisciplinary, creative research methodology where Caruquinca was the point of origin and sort of nested Ensayos, but as a program, Ensayos remains independent and nomadic. So Ensayo number 2, the first major project that we undertook together focused on invasive species in the region, the Canadian beaver. Number 3 focused on post-human geography, and the result is a web series called Distancia, which is available through our website. And number 4 focused on coastal development with several local partners. Number 5 focused on repatriation and indigenous sovereignty, working with museums internationally that had collected artifacts from indigenous communities based in Tierra del Fuego. And number 6, which is the project that we're currently working on most specifically and intensively now, is on peatland conservation. So we have done residencies, interdisciplinary projects that include exhibitions, the production of perfumes, performances, scientific papers, with all of these projects. So here are some images from our installation at the Cut East Foundation in 2014 around the beaver issue. Some fieldwork images from number 3, looking at the post-human geography. Some images from Svalbard in Norway, where some of the artists involved with number 4 also work, thinking about climate-related issues in these extreme northern and southern territories. Some images of some of the artifacts that were in discussion of being repatriated. And the current project that we've got going on that's related to the course from last summer is about peatland conservation. And this came about through a residency at the New Museum of Contemporary Art at the very beginning of the pandemic, where 9 artists and scientists from all over the world met weekly to develop a play, an eco-fiction play, to sort of use all of our forms of knowledge and creativity to work through this question of peatland conservation. The play was called Cuckoo and Her Fishes, and there's a screenshot at the bottom right. And the outcome was a new organization, actually. So we created Act 1 of this play based on the play, based on an original play by Maria Arena Fornes called Fefu and Her Friends, where a group of women met in a home in Connecticut to discuss an advocacy project. So this was a play of sort of open-ended discussion and thinking. So throughout our version of that play, the outcome was that we were involved in the creation of a new organization, the Patagonian Peatland Initiative, which is real. It's not in the world of theater. It brings together scientists and government organizations from the Patagonia region in Argentina and Chile to fight to conserve the peatlands, because they are such an important resource in terms of being a carbon sink, and they are in danger of being mined. So the course Bog is Good, which was taught during the summer residency, really brought together some of the most important aspects of what we do as Ensayos. So our organization is called Ensayos, which translates from Spanish to mean something like rehearsal or essay or trial. So we feel that as an interdisciplinary group of artists and scientists, we can take risks that individuals within their own disciplines don't necessarily have the opportunity to take. The basis of what we do as artists starts with situated research, with field work, with interdisciplinary learning and collaboration. And that's also the basis of what we do when we teach. So for the course Bog is Good, the learning outcomes were scientific research, the study of a topic outside of your discipline through specialist readings and guided fieldwork to the Crystal Peat Conservation Area, which is in Connecticut, a former peatland in Connecticut, which was, we were joined by a bryologist, a luminary in the field, Bernard Goffinet. Situated research, which is defined as geopolitical analysis of your position in relation to the specific environmental issue of peat bog conservation, taking into account non-human others and decolonial epistemologies, and creative experiments, guided writing, exploration, somatic exercises, and story mapping in response to the field work and the situated research. So students participated in the binational seminar on the peatlands of Patagonia. They learned about peatland ecology, and for their final project, they collaboratively responded to a prompt from the Patagonia Peatland Initiative to experiment with the ArcGIS StoryMap platform to create an interactive tool that creatively integrates art and science to tell the story of a peatland. Through this process, we learned that the peatland that we were studying was a former peatland, and the students sort of go through how their understanding of the peatland evolved during the presentation of the story map. If you're not familiar with what a story map is, it is a way that within the GIS platform, which is a mapping platform that's used by geographers and scientists, it's a method that combines those technical capabilities with storytelling to present information in a way that a layperson can understand. So I'm going to go through a bit of this story map, and I will put a link to it in the...
At this moment in our story,
here we go.
And moved away from our home watershed of heating, of dryness in buildings, a particular kind of comfort, the humankind. Human effort flashes over our geological timescale. We were drained, removed. We were debogged, dried. A not bog, a leftover, a ruin. But over all this time, the water has been returning, soaking the earth through, wetting our roots again, encouraging sphagnum. Ago, some human beings came to see us.
There seems to be an issue with the screen share where the audio is malfunctioning. Let me see if I can get there again by reloading it.
If you want me to try it from my side, Christy, I'm certainly happy to do that if it's still giving you issues after this try.
Okay, thanks. Let me try this.
They were looking for a bog. They had in their minds images of sphagnum. They brought lenses and microphones. They brought their bodies too. They took photos and tried to see us. They listened and made their own strange song. Amid us, they wondered if we were what we were supposed to be, a peat bog. We answered their questions with our body language. We answered with our entirety. We felt them come and we felt them leave. We heard them wonder. What is a bog and what is a ruin? And what will be next in this place?
So I will encourage all of you to follow up and experience the whole story map. I will put a link in the chat at the end of my part of the presentation. So the outcomes of this course were that students possessed a working understanding of ecofeminist thinking and practices. And that was a lot of sort of the background reading and knowledge sharing that happened during the course. That students experienced and were able to use generative, interdisciplinary, somatic exercises in their creative practices and teaching, and that students created a collaborative, interdisciplinary artwork, which was this story map that you just experienced a bit of. Another course that I will talk about is called Hydrofeminist Meditations, and it was the Technolab course that we taught through Ensayos. So for this course, Students conducted situated research in their own communities and collaborated to produce an episode of Ensayos podcast, Hydrofeminist Meditations. The students produced segments containing fact, fiction, somatic exercises, and songs. The 3 strands of that course were collective art making. So C5 conceptualized, designed, and produced an episode in Ensayos' ongoing listening series. Technical, students handled writing, recording, editing, and launching PR for the episode, with a specific focus on relationship management and ethics as parts of the technology. And project management, students planned a timeline to ensure that all aspects of the project were completed in a manner that supported each other's work. Episode 4 of Hydrofeminist Meditations is live on the Ensayos website. It's also accessible on Spotify and Apple iTunes and all of the other places where you can get podcasts. It was distributed to the UHeart community, to the wider community, and it was suited for a pandemic audience. It was produced during the pandemic. It was accessible and fully experienced via the internet, so safe, no social engagement required. This was a really special course in that it was our, I believe, our first pandemic semester. And so with Ensayos, we had just done one of the first all virtual residencies of the pandemic. And during that time, we developed the first 3 episodes of this listening series. And we were really happy to be able to share that knowledge and those technologies with students, and again to really immerse students in our collective working methods. So it's not only it's very much about doing the situated research into those places where the students live and learning about their local water and figuring out different ways of doing storytelling, how to record audio, how to edit using Ableton Live, how to write and read for radio. We had an NPR journalist mentoring us on that, and to create and implement the social media and marketing campaign. But also this ethic of collaboration and the interdisciplinary nature. The students had to build relationships with historians, with scientists, with people who informed the stories that they wanted to tell. So I'm going to switch to my browser and play a bit of one of the segments.
Act 3, Spaceship Earth, a single droplet of water. Visionary architect Buckminster Fuller wrote, "Spaceship Earth was so extraordinarily well invented and designed that to our knowledge, humans have been on board for 2 million years, not even knowing that they were on board a ship." Artists Katie Grove and Aisha Ghani reflect on states of being and what water and humans might become in the distant future. Spaceship Earth is like one droplet of water hurtling through infinite space. What phase of transition is the ship hurtling towards? Liquid, gas, solid, or the quantum state of water? Pressure, temperature, environment, experiments on the quantum level. All of these elements and more are initiators into states of infinite possibility. And if we are to think to the far, far future, we may yet see a time when we have become something we cannot yet fathom. What phase of transition is the ship hurtling towards? Liquid, gas, solid, or the quantum state of water? Pressure, temperature, environment, experiments on the quantum level. All of these elements and more are initiators into states of infinite possibility. And if we are to think to the far, far future, we may yet see a time when we have become something we cannot yet fathom.
Hydrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, oxygen. Alright, let's show some healing here. Welcome. Interlinked. Everything is the archive.
So I would encourage you all, and I again will put the link in the chat afterwards to to take the time to listen to this episode. And that segment in particular is just a really great speculative fiction storytelling exercise. So the students did an Instagram takeover of Ensayos Instagram, and they rolled out a really beautifully designed campaign to tell stories about and get people excited about all of the segments as they were coming up, as you can see here. And I'm going to go back to my presentation and wrap it up for you guys. Oh, there we go. Thank you. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions. I know that we are going to have a Q&A session. Mary will be available, I will be available, and Carla will be available.
Yes, we are all available. So if you have any questions about Christy's programs and the classes that she taught, or any other curricular questions and questions about the residencies and how the program kind of flows throughout the year, Mary is a wonderful person to talk about that. And then I'm also here in case of any logistical questions, like how do I actually apply and how much does this cost and all of that good stuff. So, oh, and Christy's going to put all of the stuff in the chat, which is great. So yes, if anyone has anything, feel free to just unmute or do the little hand raisey thing or put something in the chat. That was incredibly thorough though. So I was excited to, and I've listened to all of the podcasts and like, I want to go back and listen to them again now because I forgot how good they were, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I really love how I think both of those courses just brought so much engagement inside and outside of the classroom to your program and to the program. I think that like there's so much interdisciplinary thinking and working happening there. It was really fantastic to see how it has unfolded in the world.
I think with both of those classes, as with all of the collaborative work that we do with Ensayos, the kind of ongoing conversations and sharing of ideas that happen using all the technology that we have at our fingertips, because with our group, Ensayos, we're always collaborating internationally. So we're on WhatsApp channels all the time, just sort of making, like, building these, almost like sharing neurons, you know, that we're sharing resources, reading essays and articles, and just getting really fired up on these and through these ongoing conversations. And it was really great to share that mode of working with the students and watch as that really deepened the relationships, the engagement between the members of the cohorts.
That's a question that we get asked a lot on the admissions side of things, is about, you know, how do you stay in touch and how do you get that feeling of a community and a cohort when you are literally spread around the world and in all these different time zones and you're only getting together a couple times a year. And it is always astonishing to see how quickly our students bond with each other. We kind of throw them into the deep end, to be honest. And I think it just immediately bonds them. And then everyone's coming to the table for a specific reason that everyone understands right away. You know, no matter what artistic discipline we have people come from, and we've had painters and muralists to performance artists to social activists. I mean, we really kind of run the gamut. But they're all here in this program because they want to take their practice to another level and they want to change something in the world. And having this like-minded community is, I mean, everyone just gets so excited and passionate about, like, we have people who like get our crazy stuff and they have the same issues and they have the same things that they want to fix. And they have their own WhatsApp channels that like I set up for them, and then they just use it the whole time. And I keep getting the notifications and I have to turn them off because it's so annoying. But they have such a great dialogue through the whole year. And I think we've seen, especially through the pandemic, they really support each other. And I mean, Mary, you could probably even speak to this more than I can, but the class that just graduated at the end of, so they had their curriculum interrupted right in the middle by the pandemic, and they created a way to use each other as a support system, which was really beautiful. I liked it.
Yeah, no, I think that was really remarkable to see. I think it was so important that people had the cohorts, especially during the pandemic. It was a lifeline for sure for many of us.
Yeah, so between the thesis advising and all of the, I mean, because there are those 2 online classes that everyone takes, and you're always taking those with your cohort. So yeah, they bond right away, and then you're kind of with that same group of people every few weeks for the whole program. So it definitely doesn't feel like you're alone by any means. And when we get together, it's always a celebration. Everyone always has a great time when we actually finally do get together in person.
Yeah, I think what's been really remarkable too is every time we get together, we have these tremendous skill shares with people from the cohort who just have their own skills that they're ready to explore with a group of people and deepen, and everyone's so interested in learning together. And I think it also speaks to group critiques and how we can work in hybrid programs together. And I think we could talk about that because Christy and I do group critiques when we meet in person, and we do that it's either a cohort specific critique where we're all in person and share our work, or we do it together as an entire group, which we've done a few times and we'll do this winter. But yeah, if anybody has any specific questions, let's see, hold on.
Wind actually asked a question in the chat. And yes, I completely understand. You want to time travel and go back and take the classes that we talked about because they're so cool. But the thing is, like, they keep getting cooler, so you don't have to worry about it. We could also talk about the whole lifelong learning program. I'll put a pin in that for you, Mary. But a question about curriculum, talk more about the curriculum between the residencies. And so that's kind of this like interesting dynamic that for a lot of people, it's hard to wrap their minds around because the low residency structure, was initially created to help fill the studios at an art school. And so a traditional low res program will like have you get together for 8 weeks in the summer in the studios and live there and just work your butt off the whole time. But we don't do that. We only get together for, 3-ish weeks in the summer, and you're taking classes the whole time. And we pack these very full, and then you go home and kind of synthesize and take it all in, and then have those online classes to kind of carry over. And then the thesis advising goes throughout. So you're always producing work, and there's definitely an expectation that you're putting in hours every week and making progress on your own artistic practice. And some of the courses also have either pre-readings or preparatory assignments. The methodologies class is a great example. You actually have to come the first day of class and have this project ready to present. And then a lot of the classes have a follow-up, ongoing assignment or experience of some kind. I know, and Christy, you could even probably talk about this better than I can because the whole podcast was part of that too, right? So we try and break things up and have it kind of spaced throughout the year so you are always engaged with us in some way. But the great thing about low res is that people have full-time jobs and families and all of that stuff, and you can definitely fit it in because a lot of it can be done at your own time. You can choose when you're doing these things in your life. So yes, Mary and Christy, what else should we add?
I'll add that so the class where we did the story map, Bog is Good, that class happened during a 5-day intensive on campus in the summer, and then the actual production of the story map was produced over the ensuing 6 weeks. So we set up a timeline, and basically it's a project run by a lot of people. So assigned people tasks and had check-ins and had versions and drafts and feedback sessions, and then had a launch date, and that went into September, when sort of staggered with when some other classes started. And one thing that I appreciate so much about this program is how the academics overlap and really dovetail from class to class, so that just by the nature of the program that Carol designed, the classes, whether it has to do with technology or community engaged work, they all sort of flow together so that there's just this kind of, I don't know, I want to find a metaphor here, like beautiful tapestry of interwoven ways of knowing that builds up by the end of the program.
I actually think that's a really good way to put it.
And I think, so the question about is GIS going to be taught is a really good one, because we have such small cohorts. What we usually do is we'll take a survey at some point in the beginning or the middle of a session and see what people are interested in, and then utilize that feedback when we're designing the courses like a techno lab, and seeing if there are, say, a few people interested in the same thing, then we will definitely gear the techno lab towards that. So that's, I think, one of the benefits of it being a small program where we can really tailor what we do to the artists who are involved in it.
We've even done polls of students to ask them who are some ideal artists out in the world who they'd love to have a critique conversation with. And I think it was this past summer, wasn't it? And I think it was Roberta who asked for Tosca Turan, right? And she was able to come and do a Zoom conversation, and it was a great thing. So we're able to utilize, what really does fit for your practice and what is going to be impactful for you. And yeah, it's a very responsive program. That's another thing that Carol really wanted to build in at the beginning. There's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of adaptability. We always have a dream of how something's going to go, and then like life happens, like a pandemic. And we were able to really adapt to that much better than a lot of other programs because, we have this ingrained aspect of thinking on our feet and changing and adapting and doing what's going to be the most useful for the most people. And that's something that goes throughout. The locations, yes. Do you want to take that, Mary?
Yeah, I mean, so the location, we do try to go back to the same places that we've established relationships with, and we call them partner cities. And that's, it's still a new program. So we're in our 7th year, and we've established really strong relationships with people who are practitioners in cities that we tend to travel back to. And when we hear from students that they've had a great experience in one of those places, then again, we try to make a return visit and keep up those relationships. And I think I was talking about reciprocity before. I think that's such an important part of the program, and how continuing these relationships is something that we can also offer to the students, because and Carla mentioned this lifelong learning that we've just embarked on, where after you graduate from the program, you're always invited to come back to these residencies where we're going to meet new practitioners or re-meet with the old ones and establish relationships. So there are certain cities that we do go back to, and that's not to say that we wouldn't add new ones, but usually every 2 to 3 years we'll go back.
Yeah, I think Carol definitely still had a list of like future potential sites, and we've definitely also gotten some great feedback from students about places where they know of a community and they know of some great things that would, you know, be perfectly aligned with our curriculum. And the other thing is, you know, we've had such amazing practitioners come in and work with our students. They often want to keep in touch, which I have always just found to be so exciting. I mean, Mark Dion has kept in touch with our students and guided them and given them opportunities and jobs, and, you know, sends them readings. And, you know, it's so nice to have such a great group of people who are really excited about all that we're trying to do here as a whole program. And I love seeing that.
Yeah, so I think if anyone has any more questions, it would be great. Otherwise, we can always arrange one-on-one meetings as it gets closer to the time for when the applications are due in January. And if there are any other questions, then maybe we should wrap it up for today. And it was nice to see everyone.
Yeah, I will also, as I said, we're recording this, so we have it for posterity. I will get this up and accessible on our website sometime soon. And I will also be sure to let you all know, A, when that happens, and B, send you an application fee waiver code so you don't have to pay the $50 application fee because you came and talked to us today. So I will send that via email soon. Again, the deadline's not till January 15th, so we still have time. But yeah, if you do ever like run into any tech issues or things, feel free to reach out to us, mfa@hartford.edu, really easy to remember, Master of Fine Arts. And yeah, Mary definitely has been so responsive about having one-on-one conversations to really talk about your practice, see if it's the right fit. We're happy to do that for anyone along the way who has questions about the program or the application, because we want to answer them for you.
Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks, Carla. Thanks, Christy.
Yes, thank you, Christy. Thank you, Mary. It was wonderful and such good stuff. It's great. All right, so we're going to say goodbye and thank you. And
thanks for coming, everyone.
Stay in touch.
Bye.
Bye.